Hello everyone and welcome back to Team Memes Not Meta, and in today's video, as promised, we're going to be taking a look at the combos associated with the cubic deck profile that we showed off in our last video. A couple quick notes before we begin there and before we go into the actual combos that I'll show you physically with cards on a table. I wanted to go over how we've changed the deck a little bit. See, that profile was filmed a few weeks ago, and since then we've actually adapted the deck and changed it a little bit after using it in tournament play. And we've found some success as well. We've topped with the deck in a few weeks since we've made these changes. And it's just a few small ones that we didn't want to re-record the entire video for, so we thought we'd just show you here on Ignis on Yugioh Pro. So the two cards that we actually took out of the main deck ended up being Called by the Grave and Mind Control. While they were both good cards, they were both one-ofs that really were not advancing the deck a whole lot in terms of being able to win more matchups because of them. It was nice to draw Called by the Grave to prevent us from getting hand trapped when we did, but it just didn't happen enough for it to be worth it. Same with Mind Control. Got us an extra body, but most of the time we had enough bodies anyway to link climb. So we took those out and replaced them with two copies of Infinite Impermanence, and this has done wonders for us because these two cards have definitely won us games. I personally, when I topped with this deck at a locals a couple weeks ago, won because I drew this card in my opening hand. This card is really, really good, and if you have copies of it, definitely play them in here. If I had 3, I would definitely bump them up to 3 as well. Very, very good card. Definitely put the Infinite Impermanence in the main deck, especially since it is a pure going second deck. Now, going on to the side deck, something that we did do here was add the 1 copy of Skill Drain. Now, Skill Drain is a card I wouldn't necessarily throw into the main deck in every single matchup. It would have to be a very specific one that I feel like it would give me an advantage to win. Because you have to remember, we still do use a lot of monster effects in this deck, but the main reason we have this in here, in case there is a deck we're playing where we cannot beat it and its monster's effects are that problematic for us that we just want to shut off everything, because Crimson Nova's effect to summon from the hand, of course, is in the hand, so you can summon him with the 3 cubic cards. He doesn't have his burn effect, and he doesn't have his attack twice effect, but he is a 3,000 attack monster, which is, pretty good. And if you can get that on the field, and your opponent has no way to get over that with their own 3,000 or more attack monster, that can win you the game, and it has come up when testing. So, good to have just in case. The other 2 cards that we added that do really, really well in this deck are 2 Summon Limit. And this deck, of course, as a Link Climb version, does summon a lot, but like we said, this is almost like 2 different variants in one. You can still use this deck as a Crimson Nova Turbo to try and just win on the first or second turn of the game, or excuse me, on the second turn of the game. And when that's the case, you're really only summoning twice. You're summoning probably a Duza to dump a Karma to search what you need, and then you're summoning Crimson Nova, and those are the only 2 summons. And if you can get Nova on the field, do that 6,000 damage on the first turn, and you can't necessarily win, you pass to them, you flip Summon Limit. A lot of decks are crippled by that. They cannot get around the fact that they can only summon twice. This deck, however, can, and if you're in that situation, it's a very good card to side in going first, especially along with There Can Only Be One, which we talked about in the deck profile. So those are the changes that we made here, and like I said, after making these changes, we did top a local tournament with this deck, so definitely ones that I would consider if you just watch the deck profile and are now interested in the combos. And without further ado, let's get right into those combos. There's 3 pretty good ones that I'm excited to show off.
All right, so as promised, these are going to be 3 of the cubic combos for the deck profile that we showcased already here on the channel. Now, there's a lot of different ways and variants that you can go with when you're link climbing from the effect of Unification of the Cubic Lord. I'm just going to show off 3 different possibilities. There are a lot with this deck, and you're going to have to play around with it to understand what you can and can't do. But the 3 I'm going to showcase are the combo with Zeraboros, where you can lock out their extra monster zones. The combo with Topologic Trisbana, where you can nuke their back row with a Nova. And then, of course, a standard going first combo where you can make a Link 4 like Avermax and pass on that, which is a better play than just making Nova and passing. So, first up, I'm going to show you a combo where you have no ability to get Nova summoned on the field, and then also have an ability to go into a Link 4, and we're going to do that and make it Zeraboros. So, we're going to start off with 6 cards, because we were assuming that we're going second. So, say that our hand here is a Summoner Monk, a Foolish Burial Goods, a Cubic Dharma, Unification, Cubic Wave, and then a Duza. Now, pretty good hand. Unfortunately, we did draw a unification. You don't normally want to do that. In fact, you don't ever want to do that. Very bad. But we're going to work through this and end with a banish all cards on the field effect with a Nova on board. So with that being our hand, the first thing you always want to do is when you have it in your hand is activate Foolish Burial Goods, because this is the thing you prefer to get ashed. So let's just activate that and assume it doesn't get ashed. We're going to send from deck to grave a unification of the Cubic Lords. Then we're going to go ahead and try to get a Cubic and another monster on the field, which is ideal for every one of these combos. So we're going to normal summon Monk. He goes into defense from his effect. Activate his effect. We're going to discard Cubic Dharma for that, because that gives us a little bit of ways to get back some of our Cubics from the graveyard if we need it, if things take an unfortunate turn. So then, of course, with that effect, we'll summon a level 4 from deck, and it will be Duza. Duza effect, when summoned, sends a Cubic card from deck to grave. Send another unification. We now have 2 in grave, which is very good. So now we can go ahead and link summon, which starts triggering the unification of the Cubic Lord effects anytime a Cubic leaves the field. We're just going to go ahead and we'll pretend here that this is the field center. Summon a Pentastag. It doesn't really matter. You can do any link too. I'm just doing this for now. Both of these unifications then trigger since a Cubic left the field. Chain 1, Chain 2 doesn't matter. They're both the exact same effect. They get banished. I'll put these back in the grave here. And we summon 2 Cubics from deck, ignoring their summoning conditions. The one doesn't matter, so I'm just going to do a Vijam, the Cubic Seed, and the other will be another Duza. Duza effect. When he's summoned, send to grave, and this time we're going to do Cubic Karma, since we unfortunately have the other unification in our hand. Send Karma to grave, and then we're going to activate Karma from grave, banish it, and search a Cubic monster from deck to hand. And that's when we're going to add our boss monster, Crimson Nova. So Crimson Nova goes to hand, and you can see in our hand right now, we're sitting pretty good because we do have all of the necessary criteria to summon him, but we're not going to do that just yet. So this is a board that I really want to focus on real quick, because this is where you can go off into basically any link that you want. You can make a link 3 and go into Trisbana. I'll show you a separate combo for that later. You can make a link 4, go into Boral Sword here. You can go into Mekk-Knight Cresavia Avermax by linking these off to another link 2, and then both of them together for Avermax. But I'm going to show you the Zeraboros combo, since we do have Nova in hand, and Nova plus Zeraboros and also Trisbana has some pretty nutty interactions. So we're just going to go ahead and link 4 immediately into Topologic Zeraboros. Now, since we have the 3 Cubics with different names in our hands, we can special summon Crimson Nova. It's very important here that you special summon him to the right zone if you are viewing from the camera's angle, because it is important to have the exact center zone vacant for the effects that are about to happen. Now, of course, when a monster is summoned to a zone that Zeraboros points to, you banish all cards on the field. So go ahead and banish Zeraboros. Your opponent's entire board is banished. Very nice, very nice. But guess what? Crimson Nova is unaffected by monsters' activated effects who have 3,000 or less original attack. Guess what his original attack is? 3,000. So because of that, Crimson Nova stays. He's the only monster on the board. You can attack, end phase, burn. That's 6,000 damage right there. Something to note, if you do have a Cubic Karma in your hand, you could essentially win this turn by boosting his attack. A Cubic Wave won't work, unfortunately, because you can't target any of your opponent's monsters if they've all been banished. So let's assume that we don't have that in hand, since we don't right now. And you attack for 3,000, burn for 3,000, it's now the end phase. Standby phase, Zeraboros effect summons him back. You place him directly in the center zone, and both of his arrows are pointing to the extra monster zones. Now, if your opponent is playing a deck where they rely on link summoning, they have to link summon and trigger Zeraboros' effect, which will once again banish all cards on the field except for Crimson Nova. All right, so this is going to be a different combo here. We have another hand here, not exactly great. I'm going to show you how we can end and turn this hand into a topological Trisbana, nuke your opponent's back row, and then have a Crimson Nova on the field. So the first thing we're going to want to do with this hand is go ahead and actually activate Cubic Dharma. Now, Cubic Dharma is a continuous spell that goes there. We're going to use that effect to send a Cubic card from hand to grave and draw 1. So we are going to send Unification of the Cubic Lords because we want that in our grave, of course, and we drew it, unfortunately. Draw 1 card, and it happens to be an Indioria. So that doesn't really matter. We just needed a different Cubic name there. So no problem at all with that. Now what we're going to do is actually normal summon a Yugioh the Cubic Seed. And now what we can do with that is immediately link it off into a Link Karibo, because it is a level 1. And that's important because it triggers Unification's effect from the grave, banish, special summon a Cubic from deck. Of course, we're going to do a Duza, as we like to do. Duza's effect, we're going to, again, send a Unification. Imagine that, really pretty crazy. Link again. Now, this is where it doesn't really matter here what exactly the Link monster is. I'll just use Pentastag again of a generic Link 2. And of course then, Unification triggers. We're going to want to summon another Duza so we can get his effect. Duza summons, effect of Duza. This time, we are not going to send a Unification. We are going to send a Cubic Karma. We're going to instantly activate Cubic Karma's effect to banish from grave to add a Cubic monster from deck to hand. We're going to add our Crimson Nova boss monster, of course. Put that in our hand, because if you remember, in our hand, we have 3 Cubics with different names. Finally, go ahead and link off into Topologic Trisbania. Very, very good card. Put him there. And remember, his effect is when a monster is special summoned to the zone, banish as many of them as possible, and if you do, banish all spells and traps on the field, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each one banished like that on their side of the field. So we're going to reveal the 3 Cubic cards, of course, up here. Special summon Crimson Nova in a zone that it points to. Trisbania triggers, banishes all of their spells and traps. It does not banish Crimson Nova because, once again, it is unaffected by monsters' activated effects who are 3,000 or less. So very good combo. These are your 2 monsters then. You can go ahead and attack with them and hopefully burn for game. Alright, so finally, going first, obviously not ideal for Cubics, but there's a way that we can turn even a not very great hand like this into a Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax, which is very good. So obviously, some pretty good cards here, but not necessarily helping us get Crimson Nova on the field, and if we have to go first, we really want to get a monster that is better than that, to say the least. So the first thing always, of course, activate Foolish Burial Goods. We're going to send a Unification. Now, we're going to see why the Mecha Hornet Drones is good in this deck. We're going to activate Mecha Hornet Drones, gives us a token. Now, the token, of course, which I do not have currently right now, so we're just going to use this wonderful unknown Pokemon card, is summoned because you don't have any monsters in the main zone. You're going to link off that token into Sky Striker Ace Kagari. Kagari's effect, add back Hornet Drones, activate Hornet Drones again, summon the token. You get the deal here. Very, very good. Now, we're going to normal summon the only Cubic that we can in our hand of Yugioh the Cubic Seed. This is important because we now have a Yugioh, or a Cubic on the field. We need to find a way, of course, to get that off the field, so we can go ahead and actually link this, and we'll do the token. Does not really matter. And actually, I'm sorry, we actually have to do that with Kagari because we need a link zone. So we're going to link them off into Pentastag again. Effective Unification activates because a Cubic left the field. We're going to banish it and special summon a Duza. Duza effect, send to grave a Cubic card. Send, of course, Cubic or Unification of the Cubic Lords. So now we're at a pretty cool place where we can actually make a Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax with that cannot be with IP Masquerena, so it cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is really, really good. So what we're going to do is link off these 2 non-link monsters, the token and the Duza, to summon IP Masquerade. Of course, we can go ahead and trigger Unification again, since a Cubic left the field, special summoning another Duza. Duza effect. Now, this is where it really depends on what you want to do. I like sending the 3rd one just to have it there in case something happens. We can still make sure we don't die. There's always a way to get another monster out on our opponent's turn if a Cubic leaves the field. So then he'll just stay there, and then these 2 monsters were both summoned from the extra deck, so we can link them off into, of course, a Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax that can now not be targeted and not be destroyed by card effects. Again, a much better going first board than it would be to just do Nova Pass. So that's pretty much the last Cubic combo here. There's a ton more. You got to play around with the hands, figure out what's best, what works for you. But there's a lot of potential with this deck, with unification and Duza and all that not being once per turn, and a lot of cool things that you can do and link climb into. So with that said, I hope you found this cubic combo tutorial helpful. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'd be happy to help. Any suggestions as well. Of course, we're always open to them here at Team Memes Not Meta. And go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. More deck profiles and combo tutorials to come in the future.